I remember the way the lights sparkled that night, not softly, not gently, but like diamonds pressed against glass, beautiful and sharp. It was my sister's engagement party, a celebration of love, of future promises, of her rising star. The whole city seemed to echo her name. Camilla. I arrived late. Not fashionably late, just late enough to feel like an afterthought. I wore a navy dress I'd worn once to a friend's wedding, simple and clean. I remember standing in front of my mirror before leaving, brushing off invisible lint and telling myself, "You belong there. Your family." I held a small gift in my hand, a silver bracelet with a charm shaped like a key. It wasn't expensive, but I'd picked it because it meant something. "You hold the key to your new chapter," I'd written on the tiny card inside. My savings had taken a hit that month, but I told myself Camilla would see the thought behind it. Maybe even thank me for everything I'd done that no one ever seemed to notice. But from the moment I stepped into the venue, a lavish ballroom, drenched in gold and cream florals, something felt wrong. My mother glanced at me and then looked away as if she'd caught a stranger's eye. My father nodded but didn't smile. Camilla was surrounded by cameras, sparkling in her designer gown, and when she saw me, her expression tightened, just slightly, before she turned her back. I walked slowly along the edge of the room, pretending to admire the decor. I searched for an empty chair. There wasn't one. Not a single place set for me. It felt like stepping into someone else's dream, a life I wasn't invited to. I ended up standing near the champagne table, clutching my wrap box like a child holding a school project no one asked for. An hour passed, then 2. I tried to catch my mother's eye again. Finally, she walked over, her lips pursed and eyes cold. She leaned in close, but not so close that anyone else might hear. "This night is for real family," she said quietly, her voice lined with condescension. "Let's not make it awkward, Elena. You shouldn't have come." I froze. "What do you mean? I was invited." She tilted her head, like I was being dramatic. Camilla didn't want distractions. You know how important tonight is for her. We all do. Please, don't make this about you. Don't make this about you. The words landed like slaps. My chest tightened, but I nodded. I always nodded. I turned to leave, still holding the bracelet. I had no idea where to put it. So I left it on the table near the champagne flutes, beside a bouquet of lilies that reeked of artificial sweetness. As I stepped outside, the rain had begun. Not a downpour, but that slow, drizzling kind, the kind that seeps through your clothes before you even notice you're wet. I stood under the street lamp, its dull orange glow casting a long, lonely shadow. Through the windows I could still see them, dancing, laughing, drinking champagne under chandeliers I would never touch. Camilla twirled as if she owned the sky. My parents stood beside her, beaming like proud royalty. I pressed my arms around myself, trying to feel something other than shame. I should have turned away. I should have called a cab. But instead, I watched, like a ghost lingering outside a life that used to be mine. And in that moment, the realization came down heavier than the rain. They didn't forget me. They removed me. deliberately, efficiently, completely. I wasn't a daughter that faded into the background. I was erased, and I had let them. When I finally walked back to the house, the only place I still thought of as home, I was soaked. My heels blistered my ankles, and my dress clung to me like regret. I fumbled with my keys at the front door, shivering, my fingers numb from the cold. But the key didn't fit. I tried again. I knocked. No one came. I called my father's phone, straight to voicemail, my mother's, off. I stepped back from the door, staring at the brass plaque with our last name on it. The porch light flickered, and I realized I wasn't locked out by accident. They'd changed the locks, and no one had told me. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway, wet and humiliated. I wrapped my arms around myself like armor, like maybe if I held on tight enough, I wouldn't come apart. I stared at the house, my house, glowing warm behind dark curtains, a home that had once held my childhood dreams, my secrets, my safety. Now it held none of those things. Not for me. It's strange, the way betrayal doesn't always come with screams or slammed doors. Sometimes it's a quiet exclusion, a silent rewrite. One day you just don't exist anymore. And I think that hurt more than any insult ever could, because I hadn't been cast out in a moment of rage. They had planned this. They'd moved on. They'd chosen her. And I was just gone. When people say family first, they mean it with a kind of pride, like it's a badge of honor or a lighthouse in a storm. I used to say it too. I used to believe it so deeply that I bled for it, quietly, repeatedly. I was the quiet daughter, the dependable one, the one who didn't cause scenes or ask for too much, the one who remembered to refill the prescriptions, fold the laundry, return the calls, make the apologies. I was the oil that kept everything moving without friction, the piece that was supposed to work silently, without needing repair. Camilla, on the other hand, was the firework in the family sky. Loud, bright, and impossible to ignore. She sparkled when she walked into a room, with her bold laugh and wine-red lipstick and drama that somehow made people lean in instead of back away. Our parents adored her. Not in words, necessarily, but in the way their eyes followed her, in the way they forgave her. She was chaos wrapped in silk, and I was the threadbare rug that absorbed the spills. I used to think it was just roles, that every family had them. One kid gets the spotlight, the other gets the broom. But roles harden over time, like concrete. And before you know it, you're trapped in a shape someone else poured for you. When I was 19, I got into a state university across the country, literature and education. It was the first thing I wanted just for me. I remember the acceptance letter, soft and slightly wrinkled from being read too many times. I kept it tucked inside a book of poetry on my nightstand. I had dreams of small classrooms, dusty chalkboards, and maybe, just maybe, a life where I wasn't an accessory to someone else's story. But then came the phone call. Dad had lost his job. The bills were piling up. Just for a year, they said. Help out, and then we'll figure something out. Mom's health was fragile. Camilla was planning a study abroad in Florence. It made sense, right? I was the practical one, the strong one. So I let the dream fold in on itself. I told the university I'd defer. I told myself I wasn't giving up, just delaying. But delay turned into years. And dreams age like fruit left on the counter. Soft, then bitter, then mold you don't even notice until it's too late. I worked at a local pharmacy. Long shifts, quiet aisles, and the rhythmic beep of scanned barcodes. I told myself I was lucky to have a job, to be useful. But inside I was shrinking. I began to mistake usefulness for worth. Camilla sent postcards from Paris and Florence and Prague. She wrote things like, "Wish you were here," in looping cursive that felt more like performance than sentiment. I kept them anyway, pinned above my desk like some proof that I still existed in her world. When Mom got sick, a long, slow illness with doctor visits and quiet dread, I became the nurse no one hired. I changed her dressings, counted her pills, slept on the couch outside her room. Camilla flew in once, stayed for 3 days, then posted a filtered photo of herself caring for Mom, while I cleaned out the vomit bucket in the hallway. Still, I stayed silent, because that's what I did, because I thought love meant endurance. There was a necklace once, my grandmother's locket, gold with a tiny etched rose on the front. She'd given it to me when I was 13, whispering that quiet girls carry the strongest hearts. It was the only thing in my life that felt like inheritance, like being seen. When the electricity bill came due and the account was empty, I sold it. I remember placing it in the pawn shop owner's hand like I was handing over a piece of my body. It was just a thing, right? Just metal and memory. But walking, out without it, I felt hollow in some place I couldn't name. I didn't tell anyone, just like I didn't tell them when I canceled my birthday dinner, because Camilla's job interview ran late, and they needed me to watch her dog. Just like I didn't argue when Dad used the money I saved for a used car to fix the roof. "We'll pay you back," he said. He never did. My ex-boyfriend, James, used to say I loved people who forgot to love me back. At the time, I laughed. He said it after a Thanksgiving where I cooked dinner alone while my family went to Camilla's boyfriend's family's house. They left me a note on the counter. "We'll celebrate later." We never did. James said I was disappearing, that I was the most vivid person he'd ever met, fading into people who didn't even see me. He left a few months later. I didn't blame him. I barely noticed I was missing from my own life, too. Looking back now, the signs were there. The photos with me cropped out. The way my mother praised Camilla for surviving a bad breakup while never asking about mine. The fact that Camilla's old bedroom was redecorated into a guest room, pristine, untouched, while mine was turned into storage without even a warning. I think I told myself that being needed was enough, that one day they'd remember everything I'd done, that love was earned. But the truth is, in my family, love was transactional. Love was conditional. And I was the employee who never asked for a raise. They didn't love me for me. They loved me when I was convenient. And now, as I stared at the locks they changed without telling me, I realized they no longer needed me at all. I used to think silence was peaceful. But that night, sitting in my car outside the house I grew up in, headlights off, breath fogging the windshield, I learned that silence could scream. It screamed when my father didn't answer my call. It screamed when my mother replied with a single message. "We told you. You don't belong here anymore." No explanation, no emotion, just a verdict handed down like I was a stranger who had trespassed. I didn't cry, not right away. I sat with my hands on the steering wheel, knuckles pale from how hard I gripped. The bracelet, the one I bought for Camilla, still sat on the passenger seat in its little silver box, untouched, forgotten, like me. That night I slept curled up in the back seat of my car, parked behind a 24-hour grocery store. It was mid-March, the kind of cold that slides into your bones and stays. I wrapped my coat around myself like armor, like maybe fabric could replace the warmth of belonging. But there was no warmth left. Not in the world I knew. At work the next day, my manager called me into the office. "Budget cuts," she said, without meeting my eyes. "You're being moved to part-time." I wanted to ask why it was always me who was moved, shifted, reshuffled to make room for everyone else. But I just nodded. Because what else could I do? As I walked out, I caught 2 co-workers whispering near the break room. "She left her family, didn't she? Drama with the sister or something?" I paused. My stomach turned. Turns out, my parents had told people I left voluntarily, that I was acting out, that I didn't want to be involved in the engagement, didn't want to cause another scene. Like my existence had always been some unfortunate performance they'd been too polite to boo off stage. Later that week, I went to withdraw money for gas. The ATM spit out a receipt with red letters, "Transaction denied." My heart thudded. I checked my app. My balance read 000. At first, I thought it was fraud, or a system error. But after a tense call with the bank, I found out the truth. My account had been flagged and frozen due to a clerical discrepancy. My father, still technically a co-signer from when I opened the account at 17, had submitted a request to limit access due to mental instability. Mental instability. I laughed, out loud, in the middle of the bank lobby. The kind of laugh that borders on a scream. They didn't just cut me off. They built a paper trail to make it look like I'd unraveled, to make sure no one would believe me when I tried to tell the truth. I had nothing. No money, no home, no allies, even my name was gone. My name was missing from the family trust. I found out through a cousin who meant well. "Camilla handles everything now," she said over the phone. "Didn't they tell you? They updated the documents last year. Of course they didn't tell me. Why would they? I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a liability. I broke down at a gas station 3 towns away. I'd driven until the tank coughed empty. Parked next to pump 6. I stared at the screen with my card trembling in my hand. I didn't even try to swipe it. I just sat there, tears falling quietly, one after the other, blurring the world into soft, cruel colors. There was a man filling up his car nearby. Middle-aged, plain coat, kind eyes. He walked over slowly, reached through my open window, and handed me a travel pack of tissues. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "Whatever they took from you, you'll get it back." Then he walked. away. I don't remember his face, but I remember that sentence and how it split the numbness like a blade, because I hadn't just lost my family. I had lost myself, my reflection, my history, my worth, and for a moment, I didn't know if I wanted it back. That night, I found a tiny all-night diner on the edge of nowhere. The kind with linoleum floors, sticky menus, and a jukebox that hadn't worked since 1993. I sat at the corner booth, ordered black coffee with the last crumpled $5 bill in my purse, and stared into the scratched mirror behind the counter. The woman who stared back at me was unrecognizable. Tangled hair, smudged mascara, hollow cheeks, red-rimmed eyes. I whispered aloud, voice barely audible. They took everything. I don't even know who I am without them. And there it was, the truth. I had built my entire identity around being what they needed, around proving I was good, dependable, lovable. And when they no longer needed those things, they threw me away. What's worse is that I let them. I handed them the tools. I carried their weight, cleaned their messes, erased myself for their comfort. And now I was alone. Hollowed out, lost, but under all that grief, beneath the exhaustio. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not that anyone was asking. I packed what little I had, a duffel bag with 2 sweaters, 3 books, and the bracelet I never gave to Camilla, and drove until the road lost its name. Past familiar streets, past the last gas station I recognized, past the county line. 3 towns over, my car coughed one last breath and died outside a pale blue house with ivy growing up its porch railings and a crooked sign that read, "Boarding. Available." Inquire within. I sat there for a long time before I knocked. The woman who answered the door had soft gray curls and the kind of face that had survived more winters than I could count. She looked me up and down, like she saw more than what was there. The tired eyes, the crumpled shirt, the bruises that weren't visible but lived in the way I stood. "I'm Marta," she said. "You hungry?" I nodded. I hadn't eaten in 12 hours. She didn't ask questions, just handed me a bowl of lentil soup and pointed to a small room at the end of the hall. That night, I slept in a real bed for the first time in weeks. The sheets smelled like lavender and old quilts. And I cried. Not because I was afraid, but because I finally felt safe. Marta let me stay in exchange for helping with her books. Ledgers for the few renters she still took in. Receipts for the odd antique pieces she sold online. The work was simple, rhythmic. I liked the sound of her typing in the next room, the creak of the floorboards, the scent of rosemary in the kitchen. Some mornings, I walked the town before sunrise. It was quiet here. No city rush, no traffic lights blinking accusations. Just soft light and the sound of gravel under my shoes. I began to memorize the way the air smelled after rain, the way the town square came alive with old men playing chess and high school kids scribbling on skateboards. One morning, tucked between a bakery and a thrift shop, I found it. An antique store called Elias & Coincide. It smelled like cedar and memory. I wandered past stacks of yellowing books, music boxes, hand-painted china. And then, in a glass case, I saw it. A delicate, silver ring shaped like a laurel leaf. Not expensive, not flashy, but mine. I bought it without hesitation. Slipped it onto my finger. It didn't sparkle like Camilla's diamond-studded life, but it felt like something else, a quiet reclaiming, a whisper. I exist. In the evenings, I began to journal. At first, just scribbles, lines that made no sense. Then words, then full pages. I wrote everything. Memories I'd buried, conversations I'd rehearsed but never had, apologies I deserved, wounds I pretended didn't hurt. The words bled out of me like venom, and with each one, I felt lighter. It wasn't therapy, it wasn't closure, but it was a beginning. Marta never pried, but she watched. One night we sat on the back porch. Her garden had just begun to bloom. Wild tulips, lavender bushes, rosemary sprigs curling toward the sky. She sipped tea, then turned to me. "You've been carrying fire in your chest, Elena." I didn't speak. I couldn't. She nodded slowly. "It's time you decided what to do with it. Burn yourself down, or light the way forward." I stared at the garden, watched a moth drift near the porch light, fragile wings fluttering in uncertain circles. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I just want my name back." "Then take it," she said. "Not with noise, with truth." I started reading again, volunteered at the library on weekends, helped Marta sort through dusty boxes of forgotten things, old postcards, a rusted compass, love letters from a war long past. I asked if I could keep the compass. "Broken thing," she said. "Never points north anymore." I smiled. "Neither do I." She let me keep it. The compass now sat on my nightstand beside my journal, a symbol of direction. Not the kind you're handed, but the kind you create. Weeks turned into months. The pain dulled, not vanished, but softened. I no longer jumped when the phone buzzed. I no longer imagined explanations from people who'd ghosted me. I no longer looked back at that house with longing. Just distance. One morning, I put on the silver ring and stared at myself in the mirror. Same eyes, same face, but different, not healed, not yet, but healing. You know you're healing when curiosity replaces grief. It began with Marta's ledgers, neat columns of local bakery invoices and hardware store expenses. I like the order, the control. Numbers don't lie the way people do. Soon word spread that I was good with books, and a few more small businesses came calling. I kept my head down, worked quietly, took comfort in decimal points and balance sheets. Then one night, I made tea, sat at Marta's kitchen table, and opened a digital trail I swore I'd never revisit. The financial trust I helped my parents preserve during their so-called crisis. It wasn't hard. I still had login credentials. Some doors never get fully locked, especially when people believe you've been discarded. At first, it was habit, idle, nostalgic pain. Then I saw something, a transfer that made no sense. Then another. Then a routing pattern that was wrong. Hidden donations to shell companies. trust disbursements flagged with vague labels: consulting, renovation, estate fees. One payment was made the week I was demoted, supposedly for business restructuring. Another one matched the amount I once paid by pawning my grandmother's necklace. And that was just the beginning. I stayed up until sunrise, heart pounding, piecing it together like a crime scene. Because it was a crime scene, just without the blood. Camilla's husband, it turned out, had turned our family trust into a washing machine. Money in, cleaner money out. The whole thing reeked of laundering, and everyone had fingerprints on it. I remembered my mother's clipped voice at the engagement party. This night is for real family. Real family indeed. I needed help. The next day, I drove an hour out to a small law office recommended by one of Marta's renters. A woman named Evelyn met me in a minimalist room lined with law books and quiet defiance. She listened. She didn't blink. Then she leaned back and said, "They used your labor to build something illegal, and then erased your name from the credits." She took the documents. I signed the confidentiality forms. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I felt strategic. It took weeks to build the case. I didn't rush. I wanted it airtight, clean, silent, and poetic. Like a storm you never see coming until the sky cracks open. I opened a new bank account, under a name that included my grandmother's maiden name. I liked the sound of it. Strong, old, almost regal. I bought a new journal, a leather one this time. And on the first page I wrote, "They thought silence meant defeat." It was strategy. There was one indulgence, a perfume I used to wear in college. Soft amber, sandalwood, and blackcurrant. My mother once called it tacky, said it smelled like rebellion. I walked into a boutique one afternoon, sprayed it on my wrist, and closed my eyes. It still smelled like defiance, so I bought the biggest bottle they had. And every morning after, I wore it like armor. One night, I sat in Marta's garden with my laptop and recorded a video. It wasn't for court. It wasn't even for my family. It was for the girl I used to be, the one who thought sacrifice would earn her belonging. I looked into the camera, barefaced, the silver ring catching moonlight. "They tried to make you small," I said, "because they feared what you could become. But your voice, your truth, that's louder than their money," I cried after. But not because I was broken, because I finally believed myself. Then came the letter. Not an email, not a phone call. Letter, on thick, cream-colored paper, the kind that demands attention. I spent hours crafting it, word by word, line by line. It wasn't angry. It didn't beg. It was surgical. I told them what I'd found. I listed the transactions, the dates, the violations. I reminded them who kept the books during the worst of it, and at the end I wrote, "You taught me that power belongs to those who take it quietly. I've learned that truth is louder when whispered. Consider this your first echo." I sealed the letter, spritzed it once with my new perfume, and mailed it certified. That night, Marta looked at me over dinner. "You're different," she said. "I'm not angry anymore," I told her. "Then what?" "Certain," It had been a year, almost to the day. The same season, the same soft spring winds curling through the streets. Elena stood once more outside the old event hall, its arched windows glowing gold with laughter and champagne. This time, she didn't flinch at the sound. She was dressed in navy again, but not the same modest dress she wore the night they erased her. This one fit like armor, structured, elegant, unapologetic. Her hair swept back, her lips painted a defiant red. Around her wrist, the same bracelet she once brought as a gift. She wore it now for herself. Inside, Camilla was laughing too loud. The new fundraiser, the new social climb. Elena didn't walk in. She didn't need to. She stepped to the front desk and handed the sealed envelope to the event planner. "Make sure she gets this," she said, voice like velvet over steel. She didn't wait to see Camilla read it. The truth didn't need an audience. By the time the envelope was opened, the papers were already filed. Evelyn had submitted everything: the financial records, the forensic audit, the claim to the trust, the embezzlement report. It had all gone through the proper channels, clean and silent. 1 week later, her sister's fiancé was led out of his office in handcuffs. 2 days after that, her father's company accounts were frozen. Investigators swept through the pristine suburban house with gloved hands and polite search warrants. The empire they built, on her silence, on her unpaid hours, on the illusion of loyalty, began to burn. And Elena didn't say a word. They called. At first, just her father. "Elena, this has gone too far." Then her mother. "You're bitter. Is that what you want to be? The bitter one?" Camilla tried last. "You don't understand how complicated this is." She didn't answer any of them. She lit a candle in Marta's kitchen, sipped her tea, and uploaded the video. The one she recorded months before. The one with her bare face and steady voice. The one she had waited to release until she was ready, to be seen, truly seen. In it, she didn't mention names. She didn't need to. She spoke of being invisible, of serving until you disappeared, of giving everything, only to be pushed out once your use expired. She spoke of sacrifice without thanks, of silence mistaken for weakness. She ended it with the words she had once whispered into a mirror at her lowest point. "They took everything, but they didn't take me." The video went viral within hours. Women commented by the thousands. Strangers, survivors, daughters, ex-wives, caretakers. All the ones who had been erased by duty. They saw her. And this time, it mattered. Her old house, the one she used to scrub floors in, cook meals in, weep quietly in, was put up for sale a month later. Foreclosure signs came down after rumors of legal settlements. The roses her mother once prided herself on were brittle now, vines twisting like abandoned threads. Elena stood outside the gate one last time. She had no keys anymore, but she didn't need them. The garden had grown wild in her absence, as if nature itself had rejected the perfection her family tried to enforce. The fountain was dry. The windows were empty. She stepped around the side fence, boots pressing, into cracked stone, and found the old bench beneath the arbor. There, half buried in dirt and wind, was a photograph. Curled at the edges, torn down the middle. It was of her, a younger version, holding Camilla's bouquet at her first wedding. Forgotten, weathered, but still intact. She stared at it for a long time before sliding it into her coat pocket. She didn't cry. She didn't feel rage, only peace. The kind that comes when you've finally given yourself permission to let go. She turned back, perfume clinging to her scarf and soft notes of black currant and fire. She walked through the broken gate without looking back, morning light stretching long shadows behind her. There was no applause, no dramatic finale, just quiet. And in that quiet, Elena smiled, because they had tried to bury her, but she was the seed.